So we're going to spend a couple of weeks talking about this little dude right here. The Mr. Twister Phenom. Very first curl-tail worm in production. Does it still catch fish? Yes, it does. And I'm going to tell you how this is a whole entire system, not just a particular lure. So you ready to run and gun? It's time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Todd here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101. I thought I would introduce the Mr. Twister Phenom as a complete system. Now, I understand that there's, the curl tail is going to limit you to, say, floating worms, things of that nature. You can always get very sneaky, and you remember the Yamamoto cut tails? Well, where do you think that came from? That came from cutting the tail and making that a straight tail worm. That's kind of where all that came from. This is around 1973, 1974, if I'm not mistaken. And when this worm first come out, there's something about the shape of the front of this worm that nobody has copied because they have this mold process patented. So they really can't copy the distance of all this. Sometimes the egg sacs are further back, like the renegades, things like that. And the curl tail in the old days were a lot flimsier than this. But since they've gone to the more molded tail, I'm going to tell you what, in a plastic worm on a Texas rig, this will not twist your line. This is the only worm I have found. It has to do with the whole entire design, where the egg sac's placed, the head is, the length of this tail back here compared to the curl tail. There's something about this that will not twist your line, but there's a trick. Use a straight shank hook. This is a 2-aught. It's going to be kind of hard to show that actually rigging it up. But this 2-aught fits right in front of that egg sac. The trick is, there's a seam in this mold. This tail needs to stick opposite of the position of this hook. So basically the hook is on the bottom, the curl tail is on top. So you will actually be rigging this in the mold seam in this worm. Okay? That's very important to keep this worm from twisting your line. And do I boil them? Yes. As you can see. But I don't boil them very long. 15-20 seconds is about as far as I'll boil these things, because I don't want them super soft. But when this worm goes over a limb, you want that worm to actually fold over the limb. Just like that. And the curl tail sometimes will catch you. That's just common. But the lightest weight that I use as far as a Texas rig is a 3/16 ounce. But we'll get to that down the road. This worm is what I choose to use for Carolina rigging, because I have this worm in a bunch of different colors. I'll show you my box here. This is my snazzy Mr. Twister box that I made in the shop out of white aluminum that holds all my worms. You're probably thinking, so much for simplifying your fishing. There's about 20 colors in here. Some of them are old, 40-year-old colors that nobody even has anymore, period. But I keep them in like 10 or 12 packs in small snack bags that you can get at the dollar stores. your grocery store, things like that. Just a simple deal like that. Put a couple of drops of fish, scent in there, your favorite scent. Smooth it through the bag, and drop your worms in there. Now I try to keep them as straight as I possibly can. And I've got different colored tails. I've got, it's just, I'll show you down the road the different kind of colors I have, just kind of give you an idea of what I have. But that's what I keep them in, is in the box. That way they can't move, they can't bounce around, they stay in that one container just like that. Rattles, I use a 3 or 4 millimeter rattle. You can hear that. Glass rattle with a cutter tool. This is nothing more than an 1/8 inch brass tubing with some duct tape wrapped on the end as a handle. And that's all that is to put these kind of things in. And I put them right here in the head, which separates them from the front and the back part of the hook. How do I fish these? Man, there's, like I said, there's a Carolina rig, which I have already done a video on using that worm. One version that people have completely forgot about over the years is the old weighted keeper hook. Just a standard Mr. Twister weighted keeper hook. I do take a Sharpie marker and then clear coat it with some brush on super glue, just so it's dark. But I don't change the color of the hook. The hook stays the same. I just make sure it's razor sharp when I go to sharpen that dude. And this spike makes a huge difference in that thing. I like throwing this on a spinning rod because it's an 1/8 ounce. This is what I use, is an 1/8 ounce 2-aught. And for a spinning rod, it just works better because it's lighter. You can skip under docks, under trees. On a bait casting outfit like this, it's kind of hard to throw an 1/8 ounce because the worm itself weighs just under an 1/8. So you're not really throwing a 1/4 ounce lure. So it's kind of hard to throw on a casting rig, but you can do it. It's just not the easiest way to do it. There's also the regular keeper hook, which again, I don't color these. I just leave them bronze. The regular keeper hook. And I use 3 different types of straight shank hooks, which I will get to. Like I said, this is a whole entire system. You can throw this worm, like I said, Carolina rig, skip it with a weighted jig, just let it kind of slide across the bottom, which is what that is for. Again, tail up, because when you rest that thing, you want that tail, because this worm floats, you want that tail to go tail up. And that curl tail right up on top. So that's the advantage to using these type of weighted keeper hooks. Still sell them. They're on the website. There's a special technique I use for the original keeper hook, which I'll explain in the next video, along with the rest of these. But this is a whole system with this worm. There's a lot of other ways you can throw this thing. There really is. It's up to your creativity. But just a standard straight tail worm with a curl tail on the bottom, man, this style worm has probably caught as many bass as, say, the old man's jelly worm or the old original flip tail. This has caught, the old paddle tail type worms. This worm right here has caught just as many bass, if not more, throughout the years. And, almost 50 years later, this is still made. What does that tell you? So until the next video, guys, when I explain more about how I use this worm, may the Father bless you and keep you in Yeshua's name. And as always, fish on.